So good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of CAAR, I would like to welcome you to Embracing the Change, CAAR's Guide to the New MLS Requirements. I'm Tara Savage. I'm the 2024 MLS Committee Chair. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge the CAAR antitrust statement. This statement ensures that we are encouraging discussions that promote all realtors and does not reflect competition among members or potential members. We work to foster a forum of an open discussion of diverse opinions without attempting in any way to discourage or sanction any business practice. Did I disappear?
You did. You're the voice in the background. If you could lean forward, we'll be able to see you.
All right, well, I'm going to keep talking. The CAAR antitrust statement will be acknowledged before every CAAR meeting. Next, I'd like to welcome CAAR 2024 President Ann Burrows and CEO Abby Tammin to our webinar. We know that we have several hundred members subscribers participating in today's webinar. If your brokerage is hosting a watch party with multiple attendees, please consider sending your attendee names to support@caar.com so we can enter the individuals to as participants in our member database. Speaking of the brokerages also, this webinar is not intended to advise brokerages on their practices in terms of communicating compensation with other brokerages. That is going to be up to the individual brokerages and how they advise their agents to deal with those issues. So we will address for all participant questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, please use the Q&A feature in your Zoom toolbar. This session is also being recorded and will be made available on the CAAR YouTube channel. So to begin our session, Abby will address the specifics about what specific policy and practice changes we expect in August. So Abby, please take it away.
You got it. Thank you, Tara. Hey, Ann, are you ready? You feeling ready for this?
I sure am.
Awesome. Lots of good information. And I know I
Yes.
see the number growing for the attendees, and I know there's hundreds of you out there. So give us a wave. We're excited to have you here. It shows that you're committed to learning the information to do right by the MLS and your clients. So we're thankful to have you here. We've divided today's presentation into a number of different chunks. We're going to start with just some general practice changes based on what happened at NAR. Many of you have read all of that information that NAR and VAR and CAAR have been promoting. As a result of the settlement, compensation can no longer be part of the MLS. Additionally, NAR has said that buyers must enter into a written agreement before you tour a home. And that might be a slight practice change, but the new settlement terms are very specific. You must enter into a written agreement before touring a home. What has changed, what you didn't hear me say was the MLS is an offer of cooperation and compensation. We are now just going to tell you that the definition of the MLS is now an offer of cooperation among participants. Additionally, it's a way for you to share correct and accurate data with other participants, which is then also distributed out to the public so that they can see it. So that compensation is no longer what's in the MLS. And it's important to note that cooperation still is the crux of why we come together as an MLS. That's still very important. The world is working towards August 17th. So I think everybody's got this date started on their calendar. August 17th is the date that this settlement the implementing practice changes will take effect according to NAR. CAAR is going to talk about an earlier date, but we'll get to that in just a moment. So we know we told the membership, but we're going to say it again. The board of directors opted to sign Appendix B, which allowed that settlement to cover the CAAR MLS. You as individual agents are covered by the overall national NAR settlement. By virtue of the CAAR MLS signing Appendix B, we are now protecting the MLS. We have just learned that CAAR is not the only MLS, or CAAR is not the only MLS that has signed the appendix. Many of our surrounding MLSs have done that, but we learned that there is at least one MLS that did not opt into the settlement. We are recommending that you contact all of your MLSs in which you participate to ensure that they too have opted in, because this could be a potential hazard for your business. If you're posting information in an MLS that shows compensation, you are opening yourself up to a potential lawsuit. So please call all the MLSs in which you participate in. What do all these changes mean for our governing documents? We have updated our bylaws, and we've also updated our MLS rules and regulations. And in true transparency fashion, we have a red line version for you to see. You can see all the nitty-gritty details, and you can also just see the clean version. So both of those documents will be available. In addition to the changes related to compensation, we wanted to make sure that you knew that IDX and VOW data distribution were also updated, because if it's not in the MLS, it can't go out to our vendors. So the section 17 and 18 were updated. And how to avoid a fine. The purpose of this webinar is to make sure you have information. So we also want to stress that there's ways that you can avoid a fine, and we're going to be very clear about what those are. So we added information about compensation to that how to avoid a fine, so you can not get into trouble. Data Checker, our listing data checker, LDC, is the tool that automatically scans all of the data for us overnight as it's entered, and that too will be updated to check for particular information. Okay, at this time, I'm going to jump to Anne, because she is our agent. She is hands-on, knows exactly what's happening, so she can bring you the perspective from the active agent side.
Yes. Hi, everyone. So glad to see we've got almost 200 people here, and hopefully we have lots of full rooms, because a lot of what we're talking about, as Tara mentioned, is going to trigger conversation within your brokerage that are going to be really valuable. So one thing that is going to be different, Abby talked about the August 17th implementation date. CAAR is going to implement changes to the MLS on Monday, August 5th. Monday, August 5th, which is next Monday. So that coincides, there was a conversation with a number of MLSs around us, and there was a bit of a consensus that everybody wanted to try and do the implementation about the same time. So August 5th was the date that most MLSs said they were going to enact the changes. And we wanted to make sure to not wait until the actual date that it is required for the change to happen, just in case there's any kind of glitches or anything, any technical issues. We don't want to find ourselves scrambling in the middle of the night to try and be in compliance. So we figured that by doing it on August 5th, we were safe. What is actually going to change? This is probably the most important slide. Compensation and commission fields are going to be removed from the CAAR Paragon MLS system on August 5th, which means when you're putting your listing input in the reports, we're not going to have any compensation field or commission field that you can fill out or see. Also, in all the listings, regardless of status, meaning that, your pending listing, your pendings, they're sold, the withdrawn, the expired, all of them will also not show those fields, even though when you entered those, or when they were entered, that information was available and was put in. It is going to be suppressed from the back end. So that information is going to be removed from past listings. We wanted to show you exactly what it looks like so that you're not wondering what we're talking about. Those are the actual lines that are going to be removed from the listing input. And you can see that's under agent information. We get Ian, we used Ian's login. So you've got Ian in there. But those are the actual lines that are going to be removed. This is for the residential. The one that we just had was residential. Those are the ones removed in land, multifamily, and rental property. So we wanted, there's 4 different classes. Oh, wow, Abby's speeding me up here. So yeah, so there's 4 different classes. It's basically the same fields, but this is what is going to disappear on August 5th. Okay. Are there going to be any other changes that are going to be made to the MLS Paragon system in addition on August 5th? So yes, we're trying, whenever there are changes that are being agreed to in the MLS, we try not to sprinkle them here and there. We're trying to kind of do everything at once. In June, the board of directors decided to remove the provisional status as one of the possible status in the MLS creation. The provisional status was not being used, and in addition, it was opening us directly to a breach of clear cooperation, because the entire purpose of provisional status was very much like a partial, except it created an MLS number. And the purpose of that was to create marketing materials, which was in complete, completely against all of our CLEAR Corporation. So the provisional status is being removed. Most of you probably have never used it anyway. You won't even know, but we need to tell you. So anyway, I'm going to pass this back to Abby now to give you some more general information about what's happening.
You got it. Excellent. So what happens if you do enter cooperation or compensation and commission into the MLS after August 5th? It's an immediate fine. If we find it, or if it's self-reported, or the listing data checker catches it, it is an immediate fine, because any notation of compensation and commission in the MLS puts us at risk of losing the NAR settlement coverage. So this is no joke. It's an immediate fine. So yes, and that the same would hold true. Not only is the MLS in danger, you as the listing agent and as the listing broker expose yourself to no longer be covered by the NAR settlement as well. To understand the specifics about how that fine process will work, it falls in line with all of the other policies and procedures we have listed in Appendix F, talking about compliance procedures, and it's going to follow the same escalation scale. If you continue to do it, your fine continues to double until you reach the 4th time, and then you're under review by the MLS committee and risk possible withdrawal as a subscriber from the MLS. So we're going to do this right. Okay, how do you know what rules have changed? We have given you very step-by-step directions on this slide as to where to find that document. We, of course, keep a current document in the MLS documents section of the Paragon MLS in the upper right-hand corner. And as promised, following this webinar, we will have the red line version as well as the totally updated and accepted version. And the CAAR board adopted these on July 24th, I do believe. So in those documents, don't forget to look for the how to avoid a fine. That will also be very helpful. I had alluded to this a little bit earlier. We are setting up our listing data checker system to specifically look for words like commission and compensation. Anytime the system finds those words in a listing, it doesn't matter if it's in agent's notes or hidden somewhere deep in a crevice, it is going to find those words and it will be an immediate fine. We had talked about additional ways to automate the process, but we know that you guys use symbols like the $ and percentage signs in different ways, and it might not necessarily be related to compensation and commission. So in some cases, we will have to look at those listings manually, either from our team finding it, or the next slide is a good reminder about the correction button. We often receive contact from you as subscribers. You're in the MLS and you see something doesn't look right. It will anonymously send us information. So we never share who offered that correction. But please know that you can hit that correction button at the top of any listing and let us know what you're seeing. And the CAAR support team will absolutely take care of that for you. Okay, we talked about current listings. Past listings, again, there is no more reference to commission and compensation, even in the older listings. Communicating the commission and compensation. And I know that this is something you guys are all working on. You bet. Go ahead, Ann.
All right, no worries. Just wanted to make sure that we talk about the fact that the compensation cannot be in the MLS does not mean compensation doesn't exist and cannot be communicated. There are acceptable ways to communicate the commission and the compensation rate. First of all, in a listing agreement, listing brokers are still allowed to offer compensation to buyer brokers. It must be done with the written permission of the seller. That's what the listing agreement is for. Second, you've got forms, the form 500, the VR form 500 allow brokers to agree off the MLS to share compensation. So this is something where when there is a ready buyer and there's a buyer's agent, and now you get the listing agent and the buyer's agent can agree to share compensation after having established it. Third, sellers are still allowed to pay buyer broker commissions directly. The buyers that would like to see if a seller will pay their broker compensation should include it as a clause in the residential sales contract. Virginia Realtor is creating a standard clause for the standard clause book that we can use for that purpose, where the seller can specifically, it can be added in the contract that the seller will pay the buyer broker commission directly. In addition, MLS participant can augment the MLS data or the data feed, the IDX, the VOW, with offer of compensation. So basically what happens is you can have compensation offered on your listings in your brokerage. So on the brokerage website, you can have compensation offers for only your listings. So if you have a website, a broker website that brings in all the data, you can add commission information for your listing, not anybody else's, but the listings of your brokerage. Okay. And also nothing in the settlement prevents us from offering compensation through other marketing vehicles like flyers, signs, emails, any other communication mechanism, as long as it is not using the MLS to communicate it. So it is not, it's not made, it can still exist. All right. So are concessions still allowed to stay in the CAAR MLS system? Concessions, seller concessions are something that has existed for a long time, and they're done for all kinds of things. Concession for new paint, carpet, closing costs, all of those things. There's not going to be any changes to the data fields that we have in CAAR related to concessions. So if the screenshot that we have here is in that kind of sold bar that when you close, where you have an opportunity to enter the closing costs that were offered at ratification. So those are, buyer closing costs that the seller is paying. So those are those, and then the miscellaneous seller credit is still there. Now, miscellaneous seller credit can be a lot of different things. And it could be something, but what you cannot enter under miscellaneous seller credit is compensation that the seller has agreed to pay the buyer's agent directly, meaning this is something that shows up only on the seller side of the settlement statement. And it's something that was between the seller and the buyer's agent. That is not a seller credit. The seller credit is something that goes to the buyer, okay? And if there is seller credits that are being blank and not attributed to compensation or not, it is possible that the buyer would decide to use that to pay their buyer's agent, but that could be in there as long as it is not specifically written as a seller paying a buyer's agent. That number cannot show up under miscellaneous seller credit. Okay, there's probably going to be questions there, but I'm trying to be as clear as possible. In addition, you can have an active listing that include the mention of concession from the seller, as long as the concession is not an offer of compensation to the buyer broker. Now, keep in mind that, yes, the listing data checker is going to ping that, which means CAAR is going to look at it and they're going to read. So be careful how you write that. You want to make sure that you're not suggesting anything, because you can still use the word concession, but that's going to mean that somebody's going to take a look at it, make sure you worded it just right. Okay. In addition, now Bright, we know that Bright, just to the north of us, is adding a field for concessions. And the question we've had is CAAR going to implement those fields as part of the data share that we have with Bright? And the answer is no. CAAR is not going to be mapping Bright's MLS concession field into the Paragon system, which means that if they have concessions that they've entered, that the sellers agreed to pay a concession amount, that is not going to appear here. So you're still going to need to call the Bright agent and find out for yourself. In the same way, even though they're going to have a field, we don't have it, which means we're not going to enter anything. So in Bright, our listing is going to show as a blank under the concession field. Again, that Bright agent should call you to ask if there are concessions, because you may have some that your seller wants to offer, but you won't be able to communicate them through the MLS because we're not implementing that change at this time. If you want to know more about the Bright data share, you can visit Bright MLS News icon under the under the single sign-on dashboard. So looking at standard legal forms that we use, just want to remind everybody that we right now we use the Virginia Realtor standard forms that were last updated in June. Members can find those forms under the Virginia Realtor website in their standard forms library. We have it in Transaction Desk in our MLS system. You probably have it, if you use Zip Form, you're going to have them there. They're just in a lot of places. And so you can have that. Now, what we want to make sure that everybody knows is that these forms don't preclude your brokerage from creating and utilizing their own forms. That's not, you know, this is just what we're using and providing, but that doesn't mean it is a requirement for you to use those. So in case, you know, just wanted to put it out there. Wanted to point out also that we are, because Catalyst is, you know, that is our commercial platform, we have to do the same changes to Catalyst that we're doing to Paragon. And so we're also removing the compensation field from the Catalyst platform. Do you want to, Abby, can we see that slide? Yes, there you go. Under commission, that commission description is going away. That's the one change that is being made into the Catalyst platform, and all of the same rules that we discussed are the same. So I'm going to pass it back to Abby. Go ahead.
You got it.
Talk
You
about
got it.
IDX vendors.
Yep. We distribute your data on your behalf. Many of you have partnerships with particular technology companies where you display your listing data. And we have an IDX or VOW vendor agreement with them to do that. So we will also, in addition to communicating with you as subscribers, we will also communicate to those vendors who receive your data to let them know which specific fields will be removed from the feed so that it doesn't break your websites. Your vendors are, I'm sure, keenly aware from all of the other clients they have what is coming. So we will make sure that they have the exact information that you have, also receiving a copy of the rules and regs. This has become a definite question from the subscribers, and you and Tara, we were all in an MLS committee meeting recently, and we were talking about where you could display the compensation for your own listings. As Ann mentioned, you as an agent and a broker can display compensation information for your listings only on your website. Once you start to talk about taking your listings and your compensation and blending them with another brokerage and their compensation, that becomes a definite no-no. That information is out of the MLS and not something that we can track on your behalf. But what that marriage of compensation does from different brokerages on that website is exposes your brokerage to a potential lawsuit. You are no longer covered under the NAR settlement because you were displaying information together with other brokerages. And that is the crux of the lawsuit. No display of compensation with another broker. But again, you can put it on your own website. Okay. We were talking a lot about what CAAR is offering, but as a reminder, all of this information is coming down from NAR, and both NAR and Virginia Realtors are offering great resources. It's a lot to work through, but we know that the answers to what you're thinking appear there. NAR on facts.realtor has a very robust FAQ page if you have not visited. So facts.realtor can get you some more information, and Virginia Realtors as well has a wonderful settlement resource page as well as an FAQ. And Tara and I are talking a lot about details, and we're moving very quickly because we want to make sure that we can leave part of this webinar for your questions. So where can you find more details about this information? The FAQ document CAAR has been talking about will be available this afternoon. And again, this entire recorded webinar with the FAQs and the red line versions of things will go out in the Monday weekly news group email. We've also been talking to you there since the settlement information has started months and months ago. So please, if you're not receiving our Monday news group email, contact the CAAR office at the main number, and we'd be happy to make sure that you are unblocked from that. So if you have unsubscribed, you'll want to resubscribe to get that email. We are also sending direct messages to you about the change. And as always, the Paragon homepage is a wealth of information. As we learn new things, we will update that homepage. And Ann and I were talking about something today, and I logged into the SSO dashboard, and up came a message about today's webinar. So when it's timely and urgent, we will put a really important message on that SSO dashboard that you have to read before you get anywhere. And we always keep a web page available to you to talk about the most recent changes in detail. So look for the MLS changes icon on the SSO dashboard. And the same would hold true for the commercial folks who are participating. The only difference is you would be getting your information from the Catalyst platform update icon on the single sign-on dashboard. Ooh, the legal support. We know this is going to be a good one. Ann,
Yes, so you probably have a lot of questions that we're trying to stay in our lane here. Want to make sure that if you have any specific legal questions, you should contact, first and foremost, your broker. Your broker should be your first stop when you have a question that has to do with the legality of various things. Your attorney, if you know, if you have an attorney, they will definitely be able to help you with that. Again, we have a
Okay. Sounds like Anne may have frozen. Okay, I'm gonna jump in, and if Anne comes back, we'll loop her in as well. I believe she was
Well.
talking to you about oh, you're back. You're back. Go for
Oh.
it, Anne. We lost you at the third bullet, the FAQ document.
What? Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yes, so the FAQ document, Michael Lafayette is the MLS attorney for CAAR, and he has put together a very robust FAQ document about all things having to do with the settlement. So that is a very good resource. And then lastly, the VAR legal hotline is excellent. They are ready to respond to a lot of your questions. They do so in hours. So they are very, very quick.
They are
No?
sub 1 hour. They are 58 minutes is their average response time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So,
Yeah.
and that's a free resource. And
Mhm.
so that's, talk about getting it from the horse's mouth. That's how you do that. So this is basically what we have to present to you today. Tara, do you want to
Yes.
go ahead and take it over for questions?
Okay, all right. So thank you for this information. So I've been monitoring the Q&A feature. As a reminder, if you haven't asked your question, please drop it into the Q&A feature of the Zoom toolbar. A couple of questions we've have been answered on the back end, and I'll repeat those just because they were answered by just the text here. So somebody asked what the cost of the fine is if you put it in compensation to the MLS, and Ian responded that the first occurrence is $50, second occurrence 100, third occurrence 200, fourth occurrence 400. And of course, remember that the webinar is being recorded so that you can watch it on the CAAR YouTube channel later on if you want to just review everything here. And then the open questions that we have, first of all, the first question is, once these changes go into effect, if the seller offers commission to buyer's agent and the exclusive right to list, but the buyer's agent does not write it into their offer, any request for buyer agent compensation contribution, and the contract is ratified, is the seller required to provide any compensation to the buyer's agent on the ALTA at closing?
Oh my goodness.
Right into their offer.
All right, let me read that again. When's this?
I know that Anne is trying to do her best to provide that answer. I would say check with your broker or your attorney.
Check with your broker, but you know
Right.
what? Put it all in writing. Writing is
Okay, someone asked, why isn't there a clear step-by-step process to remove all reference to offers of compensation or commission from a listing?
well, I mean, the fact is that we're going to remove the option to add compensation and commission information. So we're removing the ability to include that. What you write, there's no step-by-step process to tell you how to write your agent notes in a way that doesn't violate that agreement. So it's basically just don't talk about it.
Right.
That's
Right.
pretty much it.
Right, and we're suppressing those fields. So if you have existing active listings, the field will go away, as will the data that you entered into the open text box. So you just won't see it. So that is more of a clear way to automatically do it for you. You just won't be able to enter it again, and you have to do, as Anne said, just be very cautious about how you write any additional information after August 5th.
Okay, next question. If commission and compensation is mentioned in the agent remarks about past listings of ours, in addition to the commission and compensation area of the listing, will we need to manually delete the mention of this prior to August 5th, or else we will get a fine?
So are you talking about if in the agent remarks, there was
Agent remarks,
there was actual, while the listing was active, there was mention of commission?
Right.
There is no way, I don't, Abby, correct me if I'm wrong, but once the listing is closed, you can't go in and change anything yourself. Like the agent, I can't go in and change anything on my sold listings.
There are very few fields that you can change to make sure that there's accurate data for appraisers who go in and reference that sold information. But if you open up a previously closed listing after August 5th, and there's information in agent notes related to compensation, there will be an immediate fine. So you don't have to go in and remove agent note comments about compensation in your closed listings if you don't touch them again. But no, if you're going to touch that closed listing again, it will re-trigger listing data checker to look at the whole thing all over again.
Okay. I am assuming uploading compensation agreements under add or edit documents within Paragon MLS will be prohibited. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Next question. Do we have to take out compensation offering on current listings, or does the MLS automatically delete it?
It's going to
If
be
you have-
automatically removed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that field will be removed. So if you put in a dollar or percentage, those fields will be blank
They
or
will
not appear at
disappear.
all.
They'll disappear, right?
Yeah.
If partial listings are going away, how will a cloned listing be saved? So,
No,
I can jump on that. This is actually the provisional status that's going away. We still will keep the partial status, which allows you to save as a draft over and over and over again without publicly displaying any information. So partial listings will still exist.
right. Provisional listings will not.
Correct.
Someone asked, what about offering an agent bonus in the agent notes? No.
Nope, that's compensation.
Would posting a Form 500 in the documents of a listing be a violation?
Yes, it would. It's a compensation offer. It's an offer
Yeah.
of compensation in the, you know.
Yeah.
in the
Someone
document.
asked, are the compensation fields being removed from pending listings?
Yes.
Yes.
And we should also mention solds. Anything that's sold, is that going to
Yes.
stay or go away?
It's
Nope.
going to go away.
Right.
In all statuses, those
Okay.
numbers, all of the numbers are going away in all statuses.
Okay. Someone asked, previous listings will have included under agent notes that commission paid on net sales. Will that need to be removed? We've already said that old sales, we don't need to worry about.
Mhm.
Is there a seller compensation in writing in the listing? In writing in the listing agent, can the listing agent refuse to tell you that? Is the answer, it is negotiable legal?
That's a legal question, and that's probably one for your broker.
Right. Okay, would it be permissible to show offered buyer's agent commission on showing time for your listing under the showing instructions? So using showing time to refer to what the compensation is.
I would say no. No. Because that will appear as a display in an MLS, in the MLS that's receiving that information.
Sorry, I froze for a second here, so I missed which question we're on.
So the question was, would it be permissible to show offered buyer's agent commission? In other words, if in your showing time app, can you put instructions in there's agent instructions that you can put in there? Can you say what the offer compensation is in those showing time instructions?
And I said no.
Because it is fed, the MLS inputs the information into showing time.
Well, but you can alter the information. I know the question, understand the question that she's saying. So in each of my listings on showing time, I can go in and put whatever information I want to, I can add it. So I think that's going to be a legal question, not for something that
that's one I'd like Michael Lafayette to weigh in on, because there were a lot of things there were a lot of ways to interpret the law.
Right. Okay, what if the listing is still active and there's agent notes saying something about commissions? Will that need to be corrected? Yes.
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 And please do all those corrections by the end of the day on Sunday, August 4th, because all of these changes will be implemented first thing Monday morning, August 5th.
Right, so this is the same kind of thing we've asked. How would you fix a compensation in an old listing after August 5th without getting a fine? You don't need to worry about your old listings.
Yeah.
How will appraisers and agents be able to accurately use comps if all seller concessions are not included in our data? The true net price will be unknown.
So, seller concessions, Bright is allowing them upon input. We are allowing seller concessions to be noted as you close out a listing. That information is not being withheld from our data. So concessions can be found in the MLS, therefore appraisers should be able to find that information.
And concessions, again, are concessions to the buyer.
Yes.
But admittedly, if commissions are being paid outside directly, like we said, from the seller to the buyer, it isn't going to appear anywhere in the closed, in the information we put when we're closing out a listing. So yes, that
Because
is
that's compensation.
The second part, the second part of the question was, will the true net price be unknown?
possibly.
Yes. Next question, please clarify. Are you saying we need to go back through all previous listings? No. And manually remove any reference to compensation? No, you do not need to do that.
No. There was one before that. There was one right before that about flyers, email asking about Facebook.
Oh, did I miss one?
Just right above Jay's.
Right. Okay, you said flyers, signs, emails were okay for offering compensation. What about Facebook?
I would say it is,
Yeah.
as long as it's your listing.
Right.
Yeah.
I have found that sellers want to offer compensation directly according to the offer received. Can I write into the broker agreement prior to showing that the seller will offer compensation directly and leave the listing agent compensation blank? Well, first of all, we know there will not be, oh, you mean on the listing agreement? Okay, I'll let you.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand the question exactly.
I think that's, again, a broker question, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think you need to talk to your broker about how those forms are going to be filled out.
How you're offering compensation, not in the MLS, yes.
Yeah.
Why can a settlement agent ask for the buyer's agreement? And why not can the settlement agent ask for the listing agreement? I'm not sure I understand that one.
So they're saying that the settlement agent can ask for the buyer's agreement, but not the listing agreement.
And
I don't
why
know.
cannot the settlement agent ask for the listing agreement? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure the answer to that.
I think that's a legal question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, but if the listing is active and not sold, I'm not sure what the question is.
Teely's original question, what if the listing is still active and there is an agent note saying something about commission? Will that need to be corrected? Yes.
Yes.
And then clarifying, but if the listing is active and not sold? Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Any status in agent notes cannot reference, I'm sorry, any status in active status cannot reference compensation.
Okay, Reeves spoke up and just said it is not permissible to use showing time to offer compensation.
Yeah.
Okay, as an example, if a seller wishes to offer a seller concession of 3% to all prospective.
What's that, Ann?
Antitrust issues here. Can we not? I'd rather we not be talking about.
Okay.
Are we talking about this question?
Yeah, since we're talking about specific percentages.
Okay.
I'd like to
Then
skip
I'll just not put in a.
Yeah, if that
as an
attendee can
example.
reword it, yeah, if that attendee can reword it and in a way that does not include actual numbers,
Yeah.
we can look at it.
Okay, if a seller wishes to offer a seller concession of blank, to all prospective buyers, regardless of them having an agent or not, and advertise it in our MLS and not offer cooperative compensation. How does this differ for a purchaser who has a buyer's agent with an agency agreement for blank than if blank was offered as cooperative compensation? I'm confused.
Again, I mean, this is a broker question. This is something that needs to be handled at the broker level.
Yeah. Was an explanation given as to why the notation of compensation in the MLS was harming the public? I don't, doesn't matter, I think, but we're just trying to follow the rules, so.
Yeah.
Um,
That's,
yeah, okay, how will we know compensation for rentals, for bringing a tenant to a rental?
you have to call. You have
Yeah.
to communicate and call.
Can we send email marketing via constant contact, for example, to all agents in CAAR with an offer of compensation to the buyer broker?
I would
Yes.
say yes, because it's an
Yes.
email platform that is not the MLS.
That's right.
Someone else just said, not a question, agent instructions do not go on MLS through showing time. Okay. For the chat, Michael's, I don't know what that was about.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of questions in the chat, and it's
Okay.
because we're just looking at Q&As right now. We've got so many questions. I think
Okay.
some of them are in the chat.
Will the
And-
sold price still be shown in MLS?
Yes.
Yes. Am I correct that the compensation can be shown on the broker's website listings as well on the individual agent's website?
Shown on the broker's website listings. Yes, that is
On your
correct.
own listings, right?
If it's your own listings and your own brokerage.
Yeah. Are there restrictions of notification about buyer's agent compensation and email blast from listing agent to all CAAR members? No, we've said that. So, does CAAR agree with Bright's concession form? And do you recommend that a CAAR agent get involved with this form?
I would say no comment. We don't have an opinion one way or another, and that's up to your individual business practice and what you and your broker have decided.
Okay, if the seller pays buyer broker compensation through a seller concession on the contract, I would expect we should put the total dollar amount of the concession in the sold fields, but not stipulate which portion of the concession was for repairs versus compensation versus some other type of concession.
I would say if you're not specifying what the concession is and it's a lump dollar or percentage, then you should be fine.
Will it be permissible to put into the MLS agent remarks, more information is available on XYZ's brokerage website?
Yes. As long as you don't put more compensation and commission
Right.
information is available on the website.
Yeah. Can we advertise in our offices that we offer compensation to buyer's agents?
Yes.
Yes.
As long as that does not appear in the MLS, then yes.
Seems to me you could advertise it almost anywhere, not anywhere, but yeah. Brokers will know better than legal advice. This lawsuit a result of broker advice actions? Why then will we go by a broker's interpretation of these laws? That's gonna be.
You have options if you do not. You have legal options provided, so.
What will be, or will there be a process of monitoring if an agent is getting a buyer representation prior to showing?
There is no mechanism for CAAR to collect, and CAAR does not have the right or the ability to collect buyer brokerage agreements. So that's going to have to do with, that's a brokerage specific, if there is a requirement, it's going to be at the broker level.
Additionally, if the MLS is contacted to say that there was a question about a particular listing, the rules and regs allow the CAAR support team to ask you for your documentation. When there's a question about listing entry date, we will ask you for your listing agreement so that you can clarify to us that the date that you entered is in fact the one that appears in your documentation. So the MLS has an opportunity to ask you for that if an issue arises. So if you're not working with your broker to figure out where to store them, you as a responsible agent should be keeping those buyer broker agreements.
Okay, someone asked, why wouldn't we just advertise seller concessions to a purchaser in MLS instead of offering cooperative compensation?
I'm not sure I understand it. Are you talking about in the agent notes? I mean, we've said that you could put in agent notes that the seller is offering X amount in seller paid concessions. As long as you don't say, as long, you know, so there's our concessions to the buyer. It doesn't have any reference to compensation. If you want to do that, you can. It is okay.
Does CAAR feel that the Bright concession form, could it compromise its memberships? The Bright concession form.
If you
So
are a Bright subscriber, it is up to you to talk to your broker or your legal counsel to see how you're using those Bright forms.
Mhm. People are
can
getting
a company be called 6% Realty? Maybe.
I think that a statement like this is what we're going to find as some really clever ways that people are
Right.
going to talk about compensation. I think if you do that, you're opening yourself up to future lawsuits.
Probably not a great idea.
Yeah.
How about the comment, seller friendly to buyers agents?
Nope. I mean, this is one of those where Michael Lafayette was very clear when we had a couple meetings that hopefully all of you attended as well, where he said just don't try and get cute about the wording, because he said that, you know, you're playing with fire. Try it and see what happens, but you're playing with fire.
Okay, so somebody mentioned here that that in the chat that someone said that the settlement does not apply to rentals. So please clarify for the group. Does it apply to rentals, compensation in the MLS?
Correct.
Yes.
No compensation mentioned for any class in the MLS. Rental, residential, multifamily cannot be mentioned at all.
Okay, so what about pending listings? Do we need any to remove compensation will be paid on contract price less any seller concessions on pending listings?
I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, someone said, how about putting in agent notes, buyers agents welcome? No, we just said no, that's not allowed.
Well, it's, you know, again, it's in the gray area. So do you want to live in the gray area? That's up to you, but it is definitely.
I think by virtue of you putting that listing in the MLS, people know that buyers agents are welcome
to cooperate.
Yeah, you're offering cooperation.
Right.
So I think to put buyer agents welcome is the gray area that could be misinterpreted for a future lawsuit. So I just wouldn't even go there.
Mm-hmm. Someone asked, do you have to have a buyer's representation form for commercial showings? This is I
don't believe so. I'm making a note. That will be something that we address and push out information to the membership. I don't want to give you the wrong information, so we'll give you the correct answer after we research it. Okay. After the webinar.
All right. If you send out an email flyer to agents on one of your listings and state the cooperative fee, can you also have an MLS link for additional information on the property?
Yeah, because it's
I would say so, yeah.
Information is not going to be in the MLS.
Right.
But Abby, yep. you look like
no, maybe I'm trying to keep up. I was writing.
Okay.
Okay, should agents rewrite existing listing agreements and buyer broker agreements if those agreements are still active and have not expired?
Again, that's a question for your broker.
Mhm.
You know, we
Do
can't.
we
there's
have
lot
a,
of way- Sorry.
sorry, do we have a firm date as to when VAR forms will go live?
We've had the form since June. They haven't announced new forms. There will be new forms because they come up with new forms all the time. But right now, the forms we have are not changing. The buyer broker agreement and the listing agreement are not scheduled to be changed.
I think the only exception might be Form 500, which specifies that the offer of cooperation and compensation is in the MLS currently, but they have to keep that form active because the August 17th changes or August 5th changes haven't gone into effect.
Yeah.
Do you have to have a buyer's representation agreement before you show land?
Yes.
I would
Yes.
say yes.
Someone said, seems like you could include under agent notes, if you have any questions regarding the property or listing, contact the listing agent. Yes, you can
Mhm.
say that.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the last question, but I'm sure that there
There's
are
lots of things in
probably,
the chat. There's a
okay.
lot.
Yeah, let me go there. Oh, let's see. Um,
Did we talk about the one about sending a flyer to fellow realtors that mentions compensation?
right, yeah,
That
we
was a
did.
yes,
We
you
did,
can.
yeah. Well,
I've already talked about.
let's
Yes.
see.
Reeves brings up a good point. Reeves, I have not heard the official extension of their hours, but the Virginia Realtors Hotline knows that you're going to be in a state with lots of questions over the next couple of weeks. So as I understand it, running up to and maybe slightly after the August 17th deadline, they will be going later into the evening and they will also be offering weekend hours. Once we know what those official hours will be, we'll of course publicize that to you so that you know you can use them even if it's after 5 o'clock or before 8:30. And that's just for a small window of time. I believe they mentioned 3 weeks.
So, I have another question, which is, will there be boxes on the buyer agreement where the buyer can check, no, I do not want to see properties where the seller is not offering buyer brokerage compensation, or yes, I do want to see?
No, we are not allowed to sort listings based on whether or not compensation is a discussion. I see a question that says, are we allowed to include a remark about buyer broker compensation offered in a weekly email blast to all agents coming from the broker, not the MLS? I would say yes.
Okay, let's see. I'm not seeing any other questions. If we didn't answer your question, can you please type it quickly into the Q&A?
I do see another question that came in. How do we fix compensation information without a fine? There is no option. There is an immediate fine. Once we discovered that there's compensation information in your listing, we will immediately apply that fine. We
Just
can't
wanna
unring
clarify-
that bell, as someone has told me.
And
So,
just another comment came in. I just wanted to, on August 5th, you do not need to go into your active listing unless you have things in the agent notes in words talking about compensation. The fields that you've entered when you entered the listing with the percent or dollars for compensation, those will be automatically removed in the background. We're going to be basically suppressing those fields. You do not need to go in and remove that information. It's going to be done automatically, but you should still take a look at those listings to make sure that there's nothing in your agent notes that suggests compensation, because that is going to be an automatic fine. So yes and no on whether you need to go into your listing on August 5th.
Okay, and then someone asked, again, how much are the fines? And if you wanna,
They, 50, 100, 200, 400. And at that point, the MLS committee has the option to review your behavior in the MLS and consider recommending suspension from the MLS.
someone else said, did you say our buyer clients cannot state that they do not want to see listings where the seller is not offering compensation?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
Did you say that our buyer clients cannot state that they do not want to see listings where the seller is not offering compensation?
We didn't say that. The buyer, it's just the buyer's agent cannot say they don't want to see listing. Like it's the buyer's agent cannot screen based on whether there's compensation or not. What the buyer's agreement is with their buyer's agent is outside of this settlement.
Okay, let's see
Oh.
here.
Donna Patton thinks that the fine should be higher. That's going to be popular.
Will the days on market continue to be in the MLS? Yes.
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 That's the only thing that's changing is the compensation field. So somebody said, where can I find the bright information you spoke about?
Look for the Bright MLS icon on the single sign-on dashboard, and that will link you to our page. And then you can also look on Bright MLS Homes. I believe it's Bright MLS Homes. I would go to Bright for that information.
All right.
You can actually find that at brightmls.com.
Will you be able
Putting
to,
information in both there.
sorry,
ahead.
will you be able to clone old listings or not?
Yeah, you
Yes,
just won't have any compensation
Compensation.
information in the cloned
Right.
version.
And the historic data, any sold information will also not show compensation.
correct,
It'll be gone.
correct.
Um,
And Tara, I see a question that asks if agents have to go in and automatically change their listings on 8.5 to no longer show that compensation. If it's in the field where you answered a number with a $sign or a percentage, that will automatically be withdrawn. If you have something in agent notes, then that is a manual process and you must change that before August 5th.
okay, let's see if there's something else.
We've answered pretty much.
I think that might be all of the,
I'm looking for new questions and I'm
right.
not really, I think we have some clarification on questions that were already asked,
Yeah,
but I'm not seeing any new topic.
okay. Okay, so if for some reason we missed your question and it was not answered, you can send additional questions to support@CAAR.com. And remember that this is being recorded and will be on the CAAR YouTube channel. Let's see, there was a couple of other things I was going to tell you. I can find my agenda. Okay. So just to wrap up, so just remember the CAAR is with you every step of the way as we navigate the changes together. And in addition to supporting you through mandatory MLS requirement changes, we hope you to continue to take advantage of all the benefits offered to you by CAAR. And as a reminder, we have a complimentary property rights luncheon on Wednesday, August 7th from 11:30 to 1 at the Hillsdale Conference Center. And we also hope to connect with you during the CAAR Reconnect Conference and Expo on Thursday, September 12th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at the Point Church. And if you register by this Wednesday for $15, you'll be entered into the grand prize, which is 2025 local realtor dues valued at $390. So thank you again for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.